Hi, everyone. Welcome to this live transmission. Today, I have someone very special with me. This is Marza Millar. I was going to say another thing, but Marza. So, Marza, I have the honor to host, to be the host in this show. And actually, I had the opportunity and the privilege to know Marza through a friend, Crodalo, which you guys know because we have had him on the show as well. Both of them will honor us with their presence at the Day of Being in Sedona after the Rise of the Guardians, and followed by the Return to Being retreat. Yet, just now focusing on the Day of Being, Marza will be there sharing with us a lot of stories related to Hopi and why. Well, I just want to emphasize the trajectory of Marza, which is remarkable. She has been over 60 years alongside and training with tribe elders. And we know what that means. That means holding the arks of all this ancient wisdom and knowledge. Her carrying those codes that a lot of people has tried to access to for different purposes, and that now today as a humanity we are being called to bring those codes alive within us, for us to remember that it's not about external tribes, it's about the origins, the memories of those souls that to some extent we carry in our lineage, directly, indirectly, and beyond that, that it's our turn to continue with those teachings, with that wisdom, with that knowledge, in order to co-create a new earth. And before we go deeply into this topic, welcome, Marza.
Thank you very much, YssaH. I appreciate you having me on this podcast. And I'm fairly new to podcasts. I'm used to doing my dirt time with people in the medicine wheel. So forgive me if I'm not great at this, but I'm good at talking. So
sure you are. Yeah, you're very good at that. And I'm sure at many other things. So Marza, speaking about your trajectory, because I do believe that acknowledging all the process that you have been through in order to be where you are at right now, and being side to side with a lot of, with many tribes all over the world, I think it's something to actually punctualize. And if you share with us a little bit about that? How has that process unfolded? A little bit about yourself, because again, as I said in the beginning of this video, for me it's an honor for you to join us. There is so much information that is so important that you are conveying, and thank you for doing that. And yeah, I don't want to be a spoiler, so please, can you share with us a
Well,
little bit
thank
about
you
that?
so much. It's kind of a convoluted story, but I was adopted at birth by my parents, my adoptive parents. Um, and it starts with my dad's story. He was born in Yuma, Arizona in 1910. He was raised in Sedona, Arizona, after his father passed away. He was killed when building the courthouse in Prescott, Arizona. And basically, my grandmother went to work with Sedona Snebley, who was the founding member of Sedona. And so my father and my uncle were basically kind of just running wild, where my aunt and my grandmother worked all the time, basically, and the boys did their they were raised more with the native boys that took care of things on the ranch and did that, went to school with kind of the poverty side of life, in that town. It was very upper class and lower class. That's just
Hmm.
how it was in those days. And so they were considered, quote, pretty much orphans. So they were taken in by the Yavapai people and some of the other native boys. There were some Hopis there, and primarily a lot of the Yavapai offspring, and some other some of the Mexican people were there also that came up and were taken care of. It was kind of a budding ranching area. And so the boys were recruited by the natives to take care of the sacred site, because when the majority back in the 1880s, there was a group of natives were rounded up and put on a reservation, and there were people that were left behind to take care of these shrines. And one of the major shrines was called the Door of the Ant.
Hmm.
And so a lot of the native boys were then trained, that were trained by these elders that stayed behind, but eventually they had to come down and mingle with the populace to survive. And the people on the reservation, they were called the Lost Ones.
Hmm.
And so I didn't really know that part of the story until really quite recently, when a friend of mine was out at the reservation there in Camp Verde, and had heard the story of the lost ones, and she knew my story. And she said, I think your dad might have been trained by the lost ones. So I went to visit the council there. I went to visit there and to hear their story. And it sounds like that's what it was. My dad's, long ago passed away, and so is my uncle. But I started training when I was very young, because he was trained, my uncle was trained, along with the rest of the gang, which were all his friends that were growing up that were native, and he had long friendships with these people growing up. But most of them didn't stay with taking care of the shrine. So my dad and my uncle were primarily ones that took care of the shrine, and then my uncle took care of the shrine with some of the elders that still came down. I don't know all the elders at that time, but they trained me. And so when my uncle died, um, and some of the other people left, that shrine was given kind of up to BLM to take care of it, and then it turned out to be kind of like a cattle area. and,
Mhm.
and now it's a World Heritage Site, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
In 2019, it became a World Heritage Site. But basically, when I started seeing the signs. And when my uncle died, my uncle said, I said, what am I supposed to do? It was like I was young. I was still pretty young when he died. My dad was 45 when he adopted me. So that was quite an age difference. And so I was told they'll show up. And it's like, okay, whatever. And I was also raised in a mystery school that my parents helped find with Robert and Earlene Cheney called Astara. That was back in the 1950s in Los Angeles. So I was raised in kind of this mysticism, and it was Egyptian mysticism along with Eastern philosophy. So we were doing hatha yoga and kundalini yoga when I was 5, that kind of thing, and doing these kind of studies, but also working doing the native studies. And I
Uh,
didn't know anything about my birth family, but then the natives started showing up. And so I had the Caros showed up, and I've worked with them for almost 2 decades. The Hopis showed up, been working with the Hopis for 2 decades. The Hawaiians showed up. I've been working with them for 3 decades. Then the Crystal Skulls showed up. I've been working with the Crystal Skull Guardians for over 2 decades.
yeah.
So I've just had a lot of these just people showing up, and also my elders, different elders showed up. And in February of 2022, I found my birth family and found I'm from Leech Lake. Um, that my birth family was from Leech Lake Reservation in Minnesota. And it was interesting because I had Native people like Russell Means come to me, a famous Lakota actor, for his cancer treatment. I also had Dennis Banks, who was actually from my reservation, come to me for healing work. So it just all kind of escalated to all of these elders just gravitated to me, not only for healing, but also learning. And I also learned from a woman that has just recently crossed, but she learned from a Hopi elder for 40 years and worked with her. And so,
And Marza, just to, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just so that people, that is the beautiful tribe that is joining us now in this live transmission, and or that will later on will catch up on this. So you touched upon a lot of important topics, and the thing is that when you're talking about the shrines, and one of them being the ant door,
yes,
for me, this is a critical topic.
it
You
is
and
a critical
I have
topic.
talked about this. A lot of people have heard about the ant doors,
Yes.
perhaps not about the shrines. So if you could just talk a
They,
little
well,
more.
basically, especially in Sedona,
Hmm.
um, the elders called them shrines. And the shrines were the holy places, the sacred places.
Okay.
And so the elders stayed behind when they were the critical medicine people to hold those places in perpetuity, to keep holding them when the other people were taken away. And so that is when they they were training other people. They were just holding there hoping something would come along that they could train people. So in the second generation, when they were able to come down from the mountain, they trained who they felt were feasible people to train. And so my father is not he my adopted father was not native, although he was adopted by the tribe, and he was adopted into these ways because he was considered basically an orphan. And so he was given all the rites of passage, all the teachings, and all that. And as any adoption goes in any tribal family, you're treated as a blood person.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
that's why it was passed down. And I have another adopted sibling who's older than me, but she didn't have native blood. And so when they adopted another child, my father felt it was right that they needed to have a child that had native blood, and I did. So they were just told that. They didn't know much about my pedigree or whatever you call it. They didn't know much about my blood, only what was told by the adoption agency. And I was hard to adopt because I was known as a mixed blood.
yeah, and that's something that I appreciate very much in you, because when we're talking about unity consciousness, and that will lead me to another question, is that um, when you say adopted, for me that word is expansive. You can adopt someone as your child, or you can adopt someone as someone who is later on going to carry the knowledge. And when you also said they were reading, of course, in other words, you said it, but they were tuning into who was in the required level of consciousness and encoding to carry that lineage, not lineage, to carry that inheritance. That also comes. That also brings me to, this is where we step up as a humanity. Knowing that there are places that need to be guarded, as the one that you are guarding, the ant doors. And you were recently in Egypt. You had an amazing trip. You were also taking care of that. So there are ant doors all over the world.
Yes, they're all over. When when the migration happened, the end of the Younger Dryas period, when the flood came, let's just make it easier. When the
Yes,
flood came, people went under with
exactly.
the ant people. We're mostly given the biblical story of we were on a boat and then we went on Mount Iraq, and that was the only people that survived. But when we go into the Puebloan people, we went under, and the migration story of people migrating. And so when you hear some of like talk about Hopi, and you hear about some of the migration, is that when we went under, we lose our ethnicity. And so when we came back up, um, there were four colors of the corn, and people chose the different colors of the corn when they came back up. And when the people came up, like Flute Clan um, out of Tibet, whereas Corn Clan came out of Africa. So there's different clans that came out of different places, and then they migrated all over the world. And one of the things that, like, so in June of 2012, I brought the Caro elders that I work with to Hopi, and that Hopi elder has Mayan codices. And those Mayan codices actually talk about the Hopi migration, that migration period. And it talks about the 8 hierarchical clans of Hopi. And so here we've got all these tribes. And so we had a Quechua translator, and there's talking about a certain ceremony. Well, the elder from the Caros is finishing that ceremony that's written in Mayan glyphs about a Hopi type of ceremony that they also do in Quechua. So you've got 3 different tribes represented there. And this is a gentleman that doesn't speak Spanish, is considered illiterate in our words. He doesn't write English or Spanish or anything, comes from the HUNUH, the high country, and he's finishing the story of the ceremony. They share the same ceremony. It was like, oh
Yes.
my God.
Yes.
It
Yes. You know something that I found out, and there is one thing, a question that I have for you regarding to this. But before, it's like when I went to Chichen Itza, actually Uxmal in the
Mhm.
peninsula de Yucatan, and there is this phrase that they say that you say it 3 times, and then you open up the stargate of the pyramid of the wizard. Well, not the
Mhm.
wizard, but
I'm
Uxmal
familiar.
to Orion, and the word is Akhenachtun. It's like Akhenaten, Aknach. The only thing that you change is a letter, and then you have Akhenaten, Aknachtun. It's you add actually, it's the E. But it's like so. Everything is so connected, and if we are capable to not only have it here, and know that we are one tribe over all, even though we order ourselves in different tribes, we are
Well,
here
I
on earth.
think if I agree. I think, also my education is in, archaeology and Egyptology. And one of the things to really look at, if we look pre-Younger Dryas or pre-tribe, if we actually look at what the earth looked like with the oceans being 400 feet lower, the migration patterns would have been much different, that they could actually walk, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
And when we look at the blood types and thinking that everybody came from Siberia and came over the ice bridge, I've spent 7 years up in Alaska and up in the Siberian area, and thinking all the people came to North America and it was in X amount of time. And then that's false narratives when we look at different blood types. So we've got the science behind it, but we don't have the academia slices that and says, no, there were no connections. But yet, in our conscious code, there is in humanity that we built pyramids all over the world. And there are doors of the ant that people did come up out of the world, And 2 years ago, when because I help with trips to Egypt every year with the Academy of Oracle Arts. We go and take students, and I was introduced to the ant door, basically the door in Nubia, which would be used for the same thing. And working with the guardians there, the mamos go there, the caros go there, and they know the doors and the tunnels, and they come all the way to Egypt and work with that. You know the gentleman yourself, Aisha,
Yeah.
and and so I've been working very tentatively, and actually not tentatively, we've been working really heavily together for the last 2 years of clearing the doors, because we're in pre-magnetic migration
Exactly.
um times, and it's
Exactly.
like, wow, we've got to do this work. And so we've been doing what's called thundering of the doors to
Okay.
clear.
Okay.
It's
Interesting that you use that word, thundering. It brings me to Indra, the Vedic deity that is also mentioned in the Buga
mhm.
message. That Indra figure that some people related to the water, some people related to the thunder. Yet it's beautiful how everything is orchestrated. You were talking about the codices that this Cato elder brought. That
No, it's actually with the Hopi. It
oh,
was given by the Mayan to the Hopi
by the Mayan.
elder, and
Okay,
we brought the carols to Hopi, and it was the Hopi that was reading the Mayan codices about the Hopi that's on the codices to the carol.
I would love to know this because this is where my question comes. That there are different stories that they say that there was a migration from the north, which right now would be United States, all the way and they would refer to that place as Tlan.
I've told it. Yep.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they talk so much about the seven sages of water or the seven tribes or the
Seven Hathors.
the caves,
Yes.
Chicomostoc, the seven Hathors. You know,
Yes.
yes. So for people that are not very much connected or that even are, but would be lovely to listen to your approach to this, how would you connect, like, how does, what role does the seven play here? This is one of the questions that I always love to ask to
Okay, well, if we go into that, if we look at migration patterns and we
Mhm,
really look that at even just some of the we'll call them archaeological anomalies, that we look
mhm,
at where the Azores are, and then we look across at the Atlantic Ridge. The Atlantic Ridge itself, which is where five tectonic plates come together. It's very volatile, actually, right there. But it used to be above ground because they have river embedments where the rivers used to be. It goes across to Bahamas, then to Bimini, and goes across to Cuba. Um, on the west side of Cuba, it's said so that there are step pyramids that are down 2,500 feet below.
mhm.
That for that to drop that far, it would have had to be one violent shake to just go straight down, which would have, with the covering of, so that all could have been also the Olmec, which is one of the oldest along the
Yeah.
the eastern coast there of the Caribbean, and going back to some of their ancient um technology in their ancient what do you call it, symbols of their language. They were actually charting growth of plants. They were charting star systems, and they're the some of the oldest um in the Yucatan Peninsula.
Yes,
And so if and that is even before the Mayan long count calendar. And so if we
on
look
this
at
one.
that technology, we're like, okay, and where would that come from? So when we think of, and so we go from Mesopotamia to Egypt, and then we talk about Atlantis and people roll their eyes, but still, if we go into the Temple of Edfu, it's written right there, and we look at those type of migration patterns and all the different um in Mexico, the migration patterns, we look into South America, we look at all these possible technologies that could exist, and even in, what is it called, Ranu Ranu, even in Easter Island with the technology of the ancient writing of Ranu Ranu there, it's all the same. And so we have
Right.
ancient ancestors that went out when, some people call it Thoth or Kublai Khan, or, Quetzalcoatl or whatever.
Yes, yes,
They're all an ocean bearing type of, where they brought humanity back online, that survived the flood, that gave technology, that gave architecture, that gave music, that gave the healing sciences. And so those are the seven sages that went out to
exactly.
humanity afterwards. We weren't all in monkey suits, um, you know, 15,000 years ago. I mean, the technology, and right now, if we look at the archaeology that we're looking at, we would go out 5,000 years and go, oh, we're only 5,000 years. Well, now we're out to 20,000 years with our science, that we're looking at LIDAR and all of that. And we're looking at, oh my God, and the anomalies that science, just academia, goes, oh, that's an anomaly, that's anomaly. We have
Yeah,
so many anomalies now that
I
were
just got
built out 20,000 years, and they're no longer anomalies. They're like, you got to address this.
Exactly. And just for people that doesn't know what an anomaly in history is just putting it aside. You know, whatever you cannot explain through the standard model of human evolution, then you just put it aside and say, okay, it's
Aside
an
and say,
anomaly. Let's address
yeah.
that later. So,
And they're piling up so much. It used to be 5,000 years, then 10,000 years. And then with Göbekli Tepe, it's 15,000 years. And now with our technology, because I'm also finishing my PhD in archaeoacoustics. And so when we're working with ancient sound, we've had all the pictures, but now, like, even in Rosalind Temple, our Rosalind Chapel, 11th century, we're taking the symbols off of Rosalind Chapel, and we're actually singing a Gregorian chant that comes from those symbols, and going into India and taking those symbols and creating sound from them. And
exactly.
so, and then I'm working on a project of going in, working with sound and timelines and weighing time and light fractures in the Egyptian temples. And we just
Yeah.
got done. We just got back like three weeks ago working with the artifacts, because there's things on the artifacts that we're working with corresponding to some of the hieroglyphs. And
Yeah.
then working, and then Dom and Her has some interesting, because I've worked with Dom and Her for the last decade, and they have time technology. And
Exactly,
so,
and this is where I was heading to now. Speaking of time technology and artifacts and all these type of technologies and
mm-hmm,
sound, so we know, like for instance, the Hathors were masters in all this technology,
mm-hmm.
activating through sound, through this frequency of their voice, through their plasma body, creating holofractal geometries, giving the
Absolutely.
space, the fabric of space-time, and so forth. So now, for instance, I put all the things together and say, for every chant that the tribes were holding, they knew that the frequency, whether it was sustaining a gateway or a door, or was configuring something unique, not only in the heart of the ones who held the ceremony at that time, yet the power of their voice was grounding all those codes, and each chant would be different. So, speaking of which, why would you say or convey to the beautiful tribe why it's so important to connect now with the ant doors? Because we know a lot of people I know that has been lately contacted by the ant beings, and even including myself, I have shared this with you, like
Mhm.
the importance of creating the new communities of Earth, taking into consideration also underground temples, underground facilities, underground. They really want to connect with us and share with us their knowledge and wisdom. They're here supporting us. This is what I have tuned into, and what these upcoming years are going to look like in terms of, yes, coming to communities, coming to tribes, ironically speak, like, how ironic is life? Come back together into tribes, prepare, get prepared, create your communities, build your structures, restore the doors, and thank you for doing that. And so what would you say about that for in your
It's a it's
experience?
a difficult topic, because there's some tribes say they were sealed from the third world, and nothing from the third world to the fourth world can enter. And I believe that, because they sealed them for a certain reason, from the third world to the fourth world. But now we're closing the fourth world to the fifth world. We're in a pre-Younger Dryas existence, which if people don't know what that means, classically, every 12 to 13,000 years, our Earth can have a cataclysmic event,
Mm-hmm.
meaning volcanoes, supercell storms, um, and the migration. And I'm not necessarily saying it's the pole reversals, but it's also, we've already had the core of the earth. There's three cores. We've already had the first core reverse. That's already happened. Um, we're also have the speeding of the earth. The earth is speeding up. We're also having the tilt of the earth changing.
Exactly.
Um, and so when we talk about, the carbon footprint is causing climate change, it's part of it, because of how things are moving in the earth. But it's also, a lot of it is because we're in this time period of when this happens. And in a lot of the prophecies, it's like we have a choice. We have this choice of, is humanity going to wake up, or are we going to just go off into to this distortion? And we have two timelines. And in those timelines, we can either stay with this distortion and destroy ourselves, or we could raise to a higher consciousness, to the new earth. And this is what I'm working on in Egypt, and that's what our trip in Egypt is about, is to work with these timelines to lessen the distortion, so it's not ripping humanity apart. But what the doors are, they were the escape hatches. They were the escape hatches. And so the ceremony that we just did, which is called Thundering of the Doors, was the clearing of all the distortion, all of those things. And it was a veiling of some of, and working with the some of the work in different areas, and working with different doorkeepers. So I'm not alone in this. I mean,
Yeah.
this isn't
No,
Marza
it
having
would
an
be crazy.
ego.
Yeah,
This is
no,
not
no, no,
Margot.
no,
This is not Grandma Two Clouds having an ego trip. This is a ceremony that I know of. It hasn't been done by me, like I keep pretty to myself. Well, I don't do a lot of these things. And
yeah,
I thought, these would end, and I would give this to somebody else, and it would happen in those days. Never thought that this would happen in, maybe in my children's days. I'm 70 now, and I never dreamed it would be in my day. I never did. But
yeah,
it's here, and it needs to be done. And so this ceremony, and also there are people coming to these doors. There's some influencers that have come to the door with distortion that had to be corrected. There are some government agencies that are trying to get in. There's a lot of distortion around these doors. So one thing, it was to clear them and to veil them.
that's another topic. And yes, I couldn't agree more. And I am witness that Marissa doesn't do it as, hey, I'm here. I'm here to do the job. It's more about that humble state of knowing that it's your mission. And I think this is one of the reasons, the fundamental reason why you are chosen. And I'm not talking only about Mars, I'm talking in general, because the high amplitude of the heart is required to sustain the level of energy that comes through those doors. If your heart is not strong, you get blasted. And let's put it in that way, because actually it reaccommodates in not very pleasant ways in your life after having such a non-even uh, energy going so high and then going so
Well, I
low.
want to say
That's
my life hasn't been a waltz. I'll tell you that. My life has not been a waltz, and I've made some bad mistakes. I've made great good things, and my life has not been easy. And also carrying, I mean, I'm Scottish and native. I look Scottish basically. And walking in these world, I mean, I've been spit on, I've been thrown into sweat lodges for 6 hours to prove that I'm somebody. I've been called names, I've been called all kinds of things, that I'm trying to be somebody I'm not or whatever. But yet I walk with, and it's just like people show up. I've walked with these people,
Yeah.
and I walk in the synchronicity of life. And so when something shows up and it flows and it's consistent, like like literally the carols came to my front door. um like Russell Means, I had read on Facebook that he had esophageal cancer. There was an email address in Facebook. How many emails did this person get? I sent an email at midnight saying, I think I could maybe help. And at 7:30 a.m. the next morning, there was an email from his wife, Pearl Means, in my email saying, what do we need? What do we need to do? How do we get to you? Now, come on. That was an ego. That was just out of the blue. That was a synchronicity that came to part of his healing and part of his death medicine.
You mentioned it's I call it quantum timing. It's when you are aligned to the heart of the earth, to your heart, and things
Exactly.
are just aligning. You know, I when you're talking about all these hard labor, energetic labor that you are performing along with other beautiful beings, I have been working with stargates, but very much coming from the feminine energy, from the divine feminine. More than man or women, it's the divine feminine. Because I do feel that there is a huge restoration that is taking place with that energy, with that potential force, because only the potential force can actually generate that torsion that's going to bring back everything to that pure state, or a purer state, let's say, to that openness. And so when you're mentioning that there are some of these places that have been taken or are being tried, or they are, or someone is trying to take over them, like the government, like other type of groups. um,
Mhm.
I mentioned this to you last time. It's like every time where you say you see UNESCO or UNESCO, it's like, oh, like something was there, something
It's
very.
not all the sides. I mean, like, I'm to a certain point, I'm grateful because they are guarding it. And when I went to the door, back to the door, because when I was younger, I'm not gonna go sing to a rock. Are you crazy? I mean, when I was like 19 and 20 years old and 22 years old, I was just starting out. I was, just dating, going to college. You want to be normal? I mean, like, sorry, honey, I got to go sing to a rock this weekend. I mean, that we're talking about, middle 70s, like, not. But as I got older, I started seeing things that I was told about, and like, whoa. And so as I started seeing more of the signs, it was like, okay, I gotta go. And so when I went back to find the door, I went back because I didn't know where it was. And so exactly, because it was on, dirt roads going back. I went to Sedona, and I'm like, I gotta find the door. And so and of course everybody in Sedona ends up at the New Age Center, the little purple thing by the Oak Creek. And there was a woman named Scotty Littlestar, and she goes, I know where that is. And I go, can you take me? And so she takes me out there, and I'm like, yes, okay, I know exactly where this is. And so we go back, and there were just all these like new age people hanging out all over the place. And it was just like, oh my God, I was just like so rattled. Like, I can't deal with this. Like, no, I'm not strong enough. What is this? And then I kept on going back and doing the prayers and laying the grounds and doing the medicine. And then in 2000, the BLM stepped in with the Rangers, and the Rangers did awesome jobs. And I'm really glad that the docents were there because they built a gate, they stopped the people coming in, and they took an amazing care of it.
Good.
But then it got really regulated to the point where I brought the mamos there in May of last year, and the mamos were turned away from praying there. And I've never been turned away, even by the Forest Service. And I was turned away by the Forest Service to pray there last May, which I was very upset about.
Of
And
course.
I met with them, and then I was told that I had to go meet with this tribal committee. And then I said, well, how do I meet this tribal committee? Who do I talk to? And then um, they couldn't tell me who the tribal committee was. And then I said, well, who do I go to the tribal committee? Well, then you've got to go to this tribe and that tribe and this tribe and that tribe and all these councils. And that was my meeting with the US Forest Service after that. And so I'm just like, I, I'm one person that has a legacy at this place. And so,
Would you be
um,
looking forward? I know that everything happens organically and it's already being orchestrated. This is the way that I feel. I know that you, even though you haven't been fully alone, it's like something that you have been taking care most of the time, and that's huge. So now, regarding to this new Earth, do you see more people coming to take care of this?
well, yes and no. I see this happen in Egypt, that one of the influencers was taken there and then tried to put something on Facebook about it, which wasn't true. And I had a talk with the person and said, you need to talk to the door person about it. And it was like, okay, take it down from that's not what it is, take it down. And then a few months later, there was another big broadcast. I mean, this person is pretty influencer. There's another broadcast from Giza in front of the pyramid saying, I'm taking the first tour um over there to this to the door there the first time. And so then I had to call another friend and tell to that's a friend of his, to tell him to stop it, take it down. It's not, because the doorkeeper from there is
Of
calling
course.
me like, what do I do? And then kind of this treatment from being not being able to go take elders to pray at the door. Luckily, there are some other places that I can go to go around it, that's on private land, and I know the people that own the private land. So that's where I took the mamos to go pray. And I'm really grateful that I was able to do that because it still has correspondence with, even though it wasn't the front door, I know where the back door is. So I was able to go to the back door and take care of it.
Mm.
But this is why the veiling was taking place, because there's people that think they know, like, I'm taking care of this and stuff. But my father trained his whole life, and my uncle trained, and they trained me. And it's not that I'm special or anything like that. But when you take your life to train something like that, and then other elders showing up to fill in the pieces after my elders died and other things. And then I have people that show up and go, oh, yeah, I can get into that. I can do that.
So
I've
you
had that happen to me.
so you as Marza would say that you would be more than happy for the right people to come to continue this legacy?
Yes, absolutely. But it
The
takes
right people.
and the right people is not anybody that feels that, um, I talked to this archangel so I could get into this place. I've had that happen. And it's kind of like, it's
Mm,
telling me that all these years of training doesn't matter because I can talk to this higher being and just go in there.
mm.
And I'm just kind of like, I was nice about it, but I was just like, okay, but understanding that mystery schools, temples, places, sacred places like this, it's not that you walk straight up to them and say, I'm here. You can't do that. They usually have combinations of energy locks. They usually have oscillation energies that you have to know to go into them. They have sacred songs that were taught to me that are that are tones that
Yeah.
actually work with that. So you need to know how to energetically approach these places, and there's rites that go with approaching these places. So it's not just I've been christened by this to go to that. And so
And that's the
that's
way
what,
of the earth, Marza. That's the way of the earth. And this is one thing that I do feel that is imprint of the codes that tribes hold. They respect the way of the earth. It's bringing heaven to earth and not only being like la 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 la, here, because that wisdom allows to respect and honor what you said, synchronicity, the what your reality is showing to you through the presence of the earth, through people, through events, through connections, through humbleness.
well, like, this is usually passed on. My children, I birthed children. I actually adopted my first child, and then I gave birth to two other children. And,
Hmm.
and none of my children are interested. They're just kind of like, Mom, they always say, Mom, that's your stuff, and I'm just like, okay. And, they have their lives and I respect that. But I've been running from my vision on my vision quest since I quested at the door when I was um 13 13 years old. My rites of passage, I quested at the door of the ant. Then I quested again on the Consumnes River in El Dorado County when I was in California when I was 30. And I saw many fires in the fireplaces, and I saw the lineage of the door of the ant. And through that lineage, um, is teaching this next generation coming up these medicine ways. And so, um, and I've been doing that for 40 years. And I've been teaching, and the elders have showed up. So I have a 60-foot medicine wheel here in Grass Valley. I have a sweat lodge. I've been pouring sweat lodge for 40 years. I was taught by grandfather Nelson Turtle, who came from, he was a road chief, and he taught me, this white-faced girl he taught, but he saw my heart,
Mhm.
and other elders. I've had a Shoshone elder, I've had a Paiute elder, I've had, you know, some of the Hopi elders. These people have shown up, and that's why we call him a unified tribe. It's part of our lineage. And I do vision quest, and the quest is I quested a 75-year-old man. And what did he say? I said, why do you want to quest? And he says, because I want to tell him I'm coming. And I've quested people that are in stage 4 cancer because they want to do that rites of passage to clean themselves, to go through the veil because they know they're going soon. And sometimes there are certain tribal rites that they can't do that. So these rites were passed down to me so that it's easier for some people that live in the Western culture to be able to do these rites. And many people have entrusted me with these, and all my elders. I just put my last elder down,
I'm
and I
sorry.
have one Hopi elder left. That's it, and I am the elder.
This is so important. This is why I'm really uh, giving a lot of energy in around this topic, around this fact, which is it's required for people to be ready, and the ones that show that are in the level of consciousness that corresponds to hold the arcs of this knowledge to be present. Because if this is lost, Marza, what's going to happen? That's one thing. And the other thing is, we are here talking about unity, unity there, unity over here, and so forth. What's about that unity if we're not capable to be present and occupy the place that corresponds to us? You know, so for me, you know how much in resonance I am with all this Native American wisdom and knowledge. You know, it makes my heart vibrate so hard.
Well,
And I know that things are going to shift in a way that it's not about new age people being there, you know, trying to do whatever looks cool in order to, you know, have more followers or whatever. It's more about the people who is truly doing it because it's a mission. It's a mission that it's so important because we're talking about the evolution of the human species.
we need to all do our dirt time, and that dirt time is really important because the dirt time and our feet need to match our mouth. And I sit back and just watch so much, and the mouth does this and the feet does that, and you see it every day, you see it all the time, and it's full of bullshit. And and then you see the levity in some people where their mouth is doing this and their feet are doing that, and people are doing their dirt time. They're not doing the see me. And we're getting into critical mass now. I mean, we've gone through, I've been talking about the 2020 prophecies since about 2018. And I was writing to a student in 2018. It was July of 2018. I was writing to a student, and it says, "The winds of change are here and the fire's coming." And I just sat back and I was sweating after writing that. And I thought, what does that mean? What does that mean? And I sat there and was writing it. And I go, this is prophecy. This means something. And I knew about the 2020 prophecies from my teachings. And
Would you tell us a little bit about the 2020
I
prophecies?
will, I will. So at that point, I knew that I I did the craziest thing. I put my house up for sale. I mean, this was like, I've been a single mom, self-employed. I had a comfortable house in downtown Nevada City, just like the perfect, cutest house that was like, I was happy that's where I was going to be. And I got the message. And it's interesting because when I put the house up for sale, we had the worst fire in California that came through. It's called the Paradise Fire or the Campfire. That was the start of the big fires. And that warning that I had in July was the start of it. And so I put my house up for sale. I still live in Grass Valley. I don't live that far, but I bought a double wide mobile home, and I scaled down and I repurposed some funds. I live on Social Security and I still work teaching. That's what I do. And it's still, I'm a senior. I still have to watch what I do. Live, I'm not a big influencer. I don't do the, I'm still very, very watch my pennies and all that. And when I did that, I just thought, okay, and I'm really grateful because I would have lost my house. In COVID, I would have lost my house. But our school, our school was just forming the Academy of Oracle Arts, and we were taking our first trip to Egypt. And I used some of my funds to go to Egypt for that because there was no other way I could have afforded to go. And
Mm.
I've been back to Egypt every year since 2019. And this was December of 2019. And I went through New York City. My son lives in New Jersey, just outside of New York City. He works on Wall Street. And I was on Alan Steinfeld's panel in January in New York City. He had asked me to be on his little panel, and I said the 2020 prophecies are here and it's coming. January 3rd, we killed the Iran military guy, whatever it was, and that almost spiraled us into World War III at that point. That's how we started 2020. And then we went straight into COVID after that. And it has been escalating ever
Yes.
since. And that was the start of the shaking.
Mm.
Now we are in time of the quaking. The shaking was more on our individual lives. It was more how COVID hit us individually, how the shutdown, even though it was globally, how to do that. We come out COVID, and yet now the shaking has just gotten bigger and bigger, and now the global economy is here, and we're all trying to figure out where's the ground underneath us, where's the sky falling in, where are we, what's happening, you know um being on Social Security, being on Medicare. Those are things I've got to worry about. Those are things I've got to look at. And just seeing what's happening globally, it's a quaking. It's definitely a quaking.
Would you
And
say that that's related to the red Kachina?
um all
And
I know,
mainly because of the solar behavior as well. What's
well,
happening with the coronal
I
holes?
will tell you that I just got a text in November of last year. And well, it was in 2024, and it just said, and this comes from Hopi, and it said red hat dash purification. That's all it said. That's all it said. And it's like, and I'm not saying it's this or that. I'm just saying it's a marker. It's
Yeah.
nothing against President Trump. It's not anything against anybody. I'm just saying the figures are in place, and here we are.
Yes.
Politically, the world stage is set, and here we are. And that's what the 2020 prophecies are. We're part of all of this rolling up to the times that we're in. And we knew in the 2020 prophecies, the turning point for some of this was 2026, 27 was a pivotal year in the 2020 prophecies.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and then there's also some pivotal years in 2030 and 2032 are also some of the big more pivotal things going on. Um,
You know,
but
I want to ask you something because I have been feeling, and I have shared this with a lot of very close friends of mine, and I think it's the first time that I say it, like in public. Yet I do feel that we're going through a stage of huge preparation to reach that critical mass from here
Mhm.
to 2030, because we need to get things done before 2030. And by this, I mean very specific communities, very specific structures already together, ready for whatever. I'm not going to say what, I'm just going to say whatever.
Well, we've got a few things on our plate, like Apophis coming at us
I
in
know, I know. Ooh,
230. Is
but
that White Cloud? Is that
let
really
me
White
just,
Cloud?
yeah, but let
Who
me just
knows?
tell you something about it, because now that you mentioned Apophis, I was listening to the other day a lady that was saying it was more about having these spaceships picking up all humanity, and I was like, okay, I respect. I can see a little. I will just mention what I see is that there will be a little bit of everything happening, and this is why we need to have free energy, because if there is a blackout, guess what? We already have access to free energy. So
Yeah.
it's like a contest, to see who runs first.
We've had free energy for 100 years.
Yes, but only for a few people,
Right.
But on one side, on the other side, we have had free energy forever. Like our rainbow body, our plasma bodies,
Oh,
just to
absolutely.
remember it.
Right. Our technology free energy. But yeah, the Shambhala warrior, here we are.
Yeah.
And also addressing just
Mm.
Native Americans. I want to address everybody. We're all indigenous from somewhere,
Yes.
and the atrocities that happened in this country and everywhere. I mean, truly everywhere. In Europe, what happened, you know, those atrocities, the atrocities that happened in North America, the atrocities that happened in South America, um, you know, but we all, if we all explore our indigenous roots, we all go back to medicine ways. The Druids, we go to the Druids, we go to the Norse, we go to the Northern European, the Germanic tribes, we go back to, you know, the Chinese and their shaman, or we go to Alaska, the Siberian shaman,
Exactly.
we all come back to shamanism, and I don't even like using that word, we'll just say medicine ways. We all grew up out of medicine ways, and I'm not going to ding Christianity either, because I think Christianity, what it has done in the name of it, is sometimes atrocious. But as any major religion that tries to dominate one another, they're all facets of God, and anybody that, depending on their vibration, that is what they're able to serve or to be part of. So God has many faces and has many, but it doesn't give us the right to condemn other people that are seeing God in that face. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
And we all have cosmology. Um, if we look at ancient cosmology, it's where I sit on the planet, and that's how ancient cosmology happened. That's how religion happened. It's that I was put it here on earth at this point, and I look up, so it's the what's above, so below. That's how I develop my technology of where I live, and as an indigenous person from that place, that becomes my religion. How the stars move above me, and how I work with it below me. That's how cosmology, and that's how religion evolved.
Yeah, into an institutional structure, you know. And now that you were mentioning, I mean, there are so many topics that don't worry, guys, we will have more shows, because there are so many things that we could talk about. For yeah, like, it's like when we talk about that religion, the religious aspect of reality is like source meets source at different gradients. How does source explains itself from a lower gradient? And that's the interesting part, because then you will see the nature of that unit. Does that unit feels like it's going to eat source itself? It's going to eat
Well, it's
himself?
like anything.
Self?
Some of the first laws of shamanism is like energy attracts like energy. So if this is your heartbeat, then there's going to be congruency. The ancient
Exactly.
word of Aini, and the really
I
good
need. Yes.
Aini are, and people kind of sometimes get that wrong. It's two dissimilar forms having a relationship. So when we have I me with somebody, it means that I'm me, like Aisha, you're you, I'm me. We're having I me right now because we're
Exactly.
seeing each other through the heart coherence. That is the Quechua word, and we are having I me. There are people that are dissimilar forms that just don't have I me, and then there's also people that have dissimilar energy and you don't have Aini with them. You have, they sometimes become your
Hucha.
greatest
They will
teacher.
have
Yeah,
hucha.
hucha. Yeah, you want to, then you do the eat the hucha
Yeah.
ceremony with the mesa. Let's do the limpia. Um, so there's certain things like that, but in that it's just and it just comes down to respect. It just comes down to respect, that no one is above each other, nobody is below each other. We all see God in our own form, and we need to respect that form, whatever it is, and we
Exactly.
don't need to attack each other about the form.
Would you say that's the key to unity? Because that's one of the questions that I wanted to do to you. What is unity for you?
I need. I think, the unity for me is each person having harmony within themselves to co-create with free will, not being overbearing by somebody, but to co-create in their own sovereignty within a unified group that's giving to the whole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really what unity is. It's and I work with a really cool guy. I mean, I got to know him for the last few months, and really this whole team that I'm working with, I really really appreciate. And I've been kind of anti AI, like, but I've learned about a certain kind that's way different. It's way different. And I've learned more about it than ever, to how to use it for humanity, and not and it's completely different than like chat gbt, or a program built on top of chat. It's totally on its own, and how we keep it to ourselves. We send it out, gets information, it comes back to us, so we're totally in charge of what we receive and what it goes. And the thing is that the way AI is being used right now, our workaday jobs in the factories and all that, they're going to disappear. And so what happens when humanity doesn't have the service jobs anymore? They're done by robotics, and we have all this time on our hands. We need to have different ways of evolution.
We will have
And
time to, they will have time to find themselves, their true mission, their true passion, to co-create that new earth.
well, maybe we need to talk to Captain Kirk and go back into the 21st century, and or 23rd century, and we'll do away with money, and we'll do with credits and barter. But we still, we've got a lot of big integration to go through, huge. I don't know. I don't have answers for all that. All I know is that there's big change coming,
Yeah.
and that integration. I always thought about my mom. My mom lived till she was 90, and she was born in 1915. And I think about all the change that she saw in her life, and I just think about all the change that I've seen in my life, and but her from, they didn't even have radio barely when she was born to the time to think about the things that she saw. She died in 2005. And so I just know the change I've seen. and
Yeah.
and so what change are we going to see, that my children and my grandchildren are going to see,
Yeah.
and it's so fast, and it's so, but the thing that we need to get right is stop blaming and shaming each other and do our dirt time. We need to do our dirt time. And we
Yeah.
need to know our ancestors. And we need to understand the relationship with the ancestors and know that the ancestors have gone before us and the little ones come behind us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And time is not linear. And in the 12th century, we made time linear. That was in a way of controlling people.
Exactly.
And we stopped living out of a circle. We started living in a straight line. And part of the last 40 years, I have spent teaching people how to live in a circle.
What
And
type of time do you use? Which system?
well, we all have to use linear time
Yeah,
because we're living
but
in
in your,
that world. But I teach people the medicine wheel.
okay.
And
I would love
and
to know about that one.
that is one of the biggest things about, because the medicine wheel is not only the time of day, it's also the wheel of the year, it's also your life and the lifespan that you have. It is the first clock, and it tells time on all levels, and it tells ancestral time, it also tells the time of day, it tells the time of the season. um and if you go back to ancestral calendars, I have this beautiful seasonal calendar. I'm also a clinical herbalist and an RN. And one of the things that I love is looking at the local seasonal calendar, because it tells like the tribal, when do they do the bear dance, when do they do the salmon run, when they're living here in Northern California, and looking when the acorn harvest is, and it has that. So when we have an abundance of plants, that means okay, it's probably going to be a heavy flu season, and we had like this ton of mullein this year, like so much mullein. And my poor grandson right now is terribly sick with the flu and cough and green snot coming out of his nose. So mullein, and we've had like the kids have a lot of flu going around right now. So at least have some breathing stuff and make some mullein, mullein tea.
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
there's a lot of that going around.
That's so
So
beautiful. The one that I have been relating, because how I see reality, the way that they use Gregorian calendar in a very linear way was actually, and I mean, we can talk about this in another time because it's a little bit extensive, the topic. But
mhm,
when, in order to install uh, a reality, which a lot of people call as matrix, but is a reality that would frame people in this linear form of perception, they used those algorithms, those codes. You were also talking about AI, like another type of AI. For me, there is a bridge in between what happened after the Younger Dryas and everything that happened after. There was a stage of restoration that actually there was an AI that was used, that we can see it in some of the artifacts, and that AI was a bridge to actually restore the primordial matrix or lattice or field by being interwoven to the inorganic matrix so that it would be restored again to that primordial field. And for me, this is why all these codes are emerging, because they have the frequency that will keep on restoring the primordial
Well, we have a
matrix.
choice. Right now, we're fourth world going into fifth world. We have a choice to either go through another catastrophe. We have two timelines. We have the choice. If we look at Prophecy Rock, we've got two choices. We either walk with the earth or we don't. We either walk with our pride and with all about, how cute we look or what we buy or what we drive or how our hair looks or whatever, and we all little, or we're going to go back and do our dirt time. We're going to, what comes out of our mouth is honest. How we walk, how we're going to give away to one another and do the giveaway,
And
and
yeah, and I'm sorry to interrupt, Martha, because this came to me while you were talking. You mentioned that, that humble unknowingness of how everything is going to turn out, with precision. No one knows. Timelines are shifting. But then also, like you mentioned, the economic system and all those things. I think that is continuously coming to me is this message that the more that we let go of needs, the more that we will be able to start co-creating new earth. And by that I mean, what if we don't need to have like all this things super ready with all this huge technology? Perhaps we will reach that, yet perhaps we need to reach that simplicity just to begin, without waiting for a pivotal, like cities, which will happen. Yes, they will happen. The first is about coming together,
that's
and
what I
then,
said. Do your dirt time. That's how
yeah.
you bring people together. I mean, there's the campfire, there's the circle. Come and sit in the dirt, come and sit in front of the fire, talk story, and what's above, so below, and understand the matrix of how lower, middle, upper world works, how energy works, how to walk within the energy grids of the earth, and have that simple remembrance, you know, and it's not what you pay or how, it's not like I look cool as this on, and it's such, I don't know. I'm so over it. And, I'm really grateful because I found Zoom through the academy. The academy, my dear friend Isis started the academy and I helped start. It's part of one of our lineage fires is the Oracle clan, and I have Star Clan, and these are our unified fires. And we started, the Academy of Oracle Arts, and that's a platform for my teachings. And she said, when COVID happened, she goes, Marza, people need to hear your voice. And I'm like, how? Because I'm used to teaching in the medicine wheel with a small group of students. She goes, Zoom. I'm like, Zoom, what's that? And so now I teach on Zoom, just the way we're doing here,
And where
and
can people reach out to you?
I don't really like it that much because I can't do what I do, but it's a way of reaching people. And so I love it because I love reaching people. I love to be able to talk story with people.
And if
And
someone wants to contact you, where can they find you?
okay, if anybody wants to contact me, they can contact me at Marza Flowers at me.com, or
Uh-huh.
um, Black Lotus academy is my website. And my phone number, might as well give you my phone number because I text people all the time. It's 530-263-7988. That's how you
Okay.
get a hold of me.
Okay.
And also with the academy, you can put the academy
Yes.
up too.
Yes.
It's the
So
Academy
otherwise
of
you'll
Oracle.
have a lot of your phone will be nonstop all the time. Dun,
Oh, I
dun.
doubt it. I doubt it. I do want to mention a couple things before we get off.
Yes.
if I
Yes,
may.
absolutely.
Um, okay, there's a couple of things coming up that we have our vision quest once a year, and it's going to be about an hour from Mount Shasta, just in on the very border near Ashland, Oregon, and it is August 1st through the 8th. And we have slots for 35 people. Um,
Oh,
and it is we have an orientation on May 4th. Um,
what's that?
pardon?
What's orientation?
It's well, we just give an orientation about what the quest is, how we do it,
Oh,
what it's
oh,
about.
oh,
People
oh.
can ask their questions. So if
Okay.
anybody's interested in that or what it's about, they can get a hold of me through the numbers that you give. And then we do have Zoom classes that we give prior to Quest that will start on May 18th, and then we'll have them in June. And so we'll explain everything and answer everybody. We do have a nominal fee that we charge for that, which includes the meals, the camp, and it all goes for firewood, the meals, the camp. It's like $3.95 is what we
Okay.
charge for this medicine, and it's not profit. We don't make profit off this at all,
Hmm.
and it's just for expenses, and it's all inclusive for the teachings, for the food, for the stay where we're staying,
Will they
all of
find
it.
that on your website? That
It's on the
information.
website,
Okay.
and we'll talk about Star Clan, which is through the lineage that I carry. So we'll talk more about that, what it is. And then the other thing we've got coming up is that we're doing some time restoration, um, which I don't know, I might sound like a crazy person, but
Don't
we're
worry. I have spoken about many things on this show.
okay, great.
I
Because
guess.
we're gonna be working with the ancient artifacts. We're working with some of the Daman from the Daman, some of
Yes.
their technology, some of the my lineage's technology, and we're working with the Egyptian temple technology. I just got back because we did a trial run with those three groups, the leaders of the elders of those three groups, of the artifacts of Dom and her and myself, working with the codes and working with the light codes, also working with um, some of the doorkeepers that we worked with, and we just got done doing that, putting together this trip that we're doing in December. It's going to be December 8th through the 22nd, doing this work, actually doing this work with the timelines to hopefully recalibrate some of the codes so people aren't caught in this distortion matrix that is tearing people's lives apart. And so we're hoping to distill the energies a little bit to really help with this. And so that's what we're doing, and seeing if we can help, really hoping that we can help, and working with this technology. And it's so anyway, that's coming. So there'll be more information about that. Aisha, you'll have more, and we'll be probably talking about this more. And
Absolutely.
also, it will be on Artifacts Guardians. We'll have more information up there. Dom and her will have more with Crotalo, more information coming up on that. And then Crotalo and I will be talking even more about that with your weekend in May in
Exactly.
Sedona.
Yeah. And we will also be having time with the Mitchell Hedges Crystal Skull. I know that you have worked with that consciousness. You share it. And
I've worked with the Skull Guardians for over 20 years. Um, with them, many of them, up close and personal. And one of them that has one is my best friend, and we've done huge things on the planet together for years and years and years. And so very familiar with working with a lot of the Skull Guardians. And like I said, they're family to me.
hmm,
So
Yeah,
Very
well,
excited.
very, very excited. Well, definitely we have many things to talk about later, and I can like we will be meeting soon anyway. So as
Thank
I
you.
said in the beginning of this video, Marza will be joining us at the Day of Being, and we will also be having a Stargate activation for the attendees for the Return to Being. And I think Marza will also be
I'll be
honoring
there.
us with her presence. These are exciting days and also exciting times, to say it somehow. As Marza was saying, time is not linear, so it's beautiful to navigate through through the continuum of space time together in love, unity, harmony,
Well,
sharing a
thank
lot
you
of.
so much for having me.
Oh,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for your presence, for everything that you are, for everything that you're doing, and couldn't be happier of soon giving you a big hug, heart to
Big
heart.
hugs,
In
and
person. Yeah.
thanks for having me so much. I really appreciate it. The
Oh,
opportunity to share with people, because I don't get to do this very often, and so I just really appreciate it for sending my voice out into the world. And if it can help anybody, I really appreciate it.
it will. It is already doing that. Thank you so much. Love you. Love you all. Thank you. And
Thank you so
until
much.
the next time, see you soon. If you want to join to If you want to join us at the Day of Being and the Return to Being and at the Rise of the Guardians conference, the description is below, and also the description of Marza's details will be below this video. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, bye bye. Take care.
Bye. You too.